Let's get
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Samson is Talking to Someone podcast. Trey is still gone. He's going to a Clips concert, which I assume will be tremendous. That was a great album with S. So my producer is gone. My co-host is gone. And I'm left with the cozy confines of my long
the
time,
dregs.
the dregs of Louis Zatzman, here to discuss with me Scottie Barnes. We're previewing his season. There's probably like 6 or 7 players on this Raptors team who are a very high import that need to be previewed for this season. Of course, you can go to raptorsrepublic.com and find written previews. I just did a very in-depth one of Scottie recently, and we'll be going through them today. Today's is Scottie. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. It helps us. We're here to talk about Scottie Barnes. Louis, firstly, how you doing? Feeling good?
I'm doing well, man. This is just been plugging away all day, you know. This is like vacation for me. Get to talk about a little basketball with my pal. It's the life.
Hell yeah. This is the villa or via of the poncho where you hang out. For people who don't know, Scottie Barnes, 2023-24, shot himself into the All-Star game. 19.9 points per game, 6 assists, 8.2 rebounds. The first 35 games of the season, he was shooting 39% from three on like 6 attempts per game. He was unbelievable. This past year, in what is somewhat of a trend for him, where Scottie pops off as the rookie of the year, and then it seems like he really stagnates in year 2, pops off, makes the All-Star game in year 3, looks like he's the top of his draft class. Seems like he really takes a step back in year 4, struggles a lot to be the main creator and motivator of the Raptors' success. 19.3 points per game, 5.8 assists, 7.7 rebounds, lost a couple steals, or stayed around the same in steals, lost about a half a block a game, but probably improved on defense more than anything. Had a hodgepodge of different roles that were assigned to him. Just to quickly sum up, where are you on Scottie after 4 years of covering his career and very closely?
I think there's a lot of room for growth. I think Barnes is right in that spot where his abilities are not reflected in impact. And impact is what people look at in the stats right now. People are so obsessed with percentages and on-offs. And right now his abilities don't manifest in those ways. And I think they will. I don't think they definitely will. It's just whether it'll happen immediately, whether it'll take a little time. But I think there's a real space for his abilities to start changing some of those non-box score stats this season.
Yep. And the box score stats as well. To your point, like the Darko's, not the Raptors coach, but the collective data, the catch-alls, the EPMs, the DPMs, everything like that. Scottie can sometimes be very impressive in that and sometimes not. And people like those a lot. And there's these big play type statistics that capture things. There's a podcast that will be released in the future, and Outside Looking In, with David Lee, where we talk about the Hawks and the Raptors. And he brought up that Scottie, as far as the efficiency of his transition scoring, he was 350th in the NBA.
Yeah.
That makes so little sense for his skills. The things that motivate what he's good at. He should be dynamite in transition. Pascal Siakam, for example, always being like 90th percentile and upwards. That makes a lot of sense. Passes the eye test. Scottie, who had some of his short mid-range pull-ups in transition last year, was like, what are we doing here? What's happening with the Raptors offense? Skills, intentionality, team, context, all of that is going to create a more friendly situation for Scottie to exist in. And I want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest change from year 4 to year 5 that will spell, I guess, moving in the right direction for Scottie?
Well, it's an odd-numbered season for him. Year 1, 3, amazing. Year 2, 4, disappointing. We're going to get another odd number. No, I mean, obviously the biggest change, it's what we've been harping on. You've written about it. I've written about it. It's Brandon Ingram, right? He is going to see his role change in the big top 10 of an offense. He is no longer just going to be the pillar holding up the roof. He now gets to exist within the tent, have a little drink, go see some shows. Well, Ingram holds up the tent on top of him. The role is you could see zero skill development, zero. I expect there to be far more than zero, but you could see zero, and the entire narrative about his abilities, his impact, his performance can change completely. He put up, you said the stats, 19, 8-6 last year. He could put up 19, 8-6 and be a surefire all-star. People are talking about as one of the most up-and-coming players in the league. I don't think output that's in the box score or abilities are the most primed for change. It's role, right? That's the biggest thing we've been talking about.
I'm really interested to see how much of the pass role he hangs on to and how much he kind of loses the grip on, and for the better, for the good. When I was writing about this, kind of looking back and, going through some of his shooting, just something as simple as going from being a player last year who was one of the highest volume mid-range shooters, and especially off the pole, the fact that he was much more than dabbling, but basically like just really I'm going to spend so much time here. This is going to be such a big part of my game. I'm going to look away from other offensive avenues. That, just having him as a guy who's in the middle and saying, you know what, I can reset to Brandon Ingram. That's a huge motivator. That his mid-range shot making can be seen as a counter rather than something that is a main feature of the Raptors offense, not even only his game. And then on top of that too, Caitlin gave me a really great stat, and Caitlin and I will get into a lot of this stuff we're doing in Outside Looking In for Pacers, Raptors, but she highlighted attacking passes. And those are passes to, they're tracked as to cutters and rollers and all these types of things. Basically, someone in motion towards the basket, right? And the Raptors were number 2 in attacking passes last year. They couldn't blow by anybody. They weren't able to get any dribble penetration, but they were able to pass people towards the basket. Now, if you think back to the Raptors last season, think about Scottie's making a lot of these passes. Who is he passing to? RJ didn't finish well at the rim. Guys didn't shoot well from 3. Is Ochai, if you take away like transition, it's not super great in the half court. Jakob Poeltl is the only surefire play finisher there. Take this Raptor scheme and now say, Scottie Barnes is going to be catching in motion. And Scottie Barnes catching in motion is a very powerful thing, not only as a guy who can play make against the team, now saying, oh God, we have to rotate over to him, catching, moving Scottie Barnes, but perhaps a guy who will also get there before the defense does, score. Doesn't he have to put the ball down? Big legs, long strides to get to the basket and finish. That kind of stuff. Just Brandon Ingram is there. Now it's easier. Brandon Ingram is there. Whoever the jumbo wing defender is on the opposite team, no longer guarding Scottie. Who's guarding Scottie? A big who's maybe a little bit ill-fitted for it. That can go yes, maybe no. A smaller guard, that's bad news. More avenues to success without any skill development. As you said, it can just be much better.
I wrote about this years ago when the Raptors were attacking a zone. OG Anunoby for a stretch was like the only guy who found success in the middle of the court. He also was the only guy who found success stretching against the zone from the corners. And it's like, well, you can't be in the middle of the court and in the corners. That's a problem, that you need this guy in 2 places. And that was last year for Scottie Barnes. In many ways, he was, as well as Yak, the only guy successful receiving an attacking pass. And yet he was the only guy who was able to create attacking passes. That's a problem, right? It's the same thing. You need a guy in 2 places at once. You don't need him in 2 places this year. That's the point. Ingram can make those attacking passes to Scottie. And the other thing, Scottie spent a lot of time floating last year above the break, which isn't criticism. Someone has to float. Someone has to be there because everything ground down. Everything ground down. Someone's got to be above the break. Hopefully, Ingram can float. That's quite to his propensity. And Scottie doesn't have to, and Quickly doesn't have to. The ideal is they were only doing that because someone had to. We'll see if that's actually, how things settle out. But it would suit Ingram's cutting or lack thereof to float. And it would suit Scottie's ability as a real killer, as a finisher, as a play connector, to no longer be that. So I'm hoping a lot of things sort of settle into place in terms of where people find their touches, where people find their roles within, each stage of an offense, with Ingram there to supplant some elements of Scottie and also to uplift others.
That's what it is that the correct measure of his game, and something that I think the consensus on Scottie has gotten wrong basically every year, whether he has the big year or the what seems like a regression year. In the regression years, you can tell that there's things improving under the hood that will manifest the next season. And I think that was clear from year 4 too. Like, he's added things.
Yep.
He does, some of it does need to leave in the way of, like, that's bad decision making. If the team wants to win, this needs to get ironed out. But year 1, it was like, well, he's scoring 15 points per game. This is a budding star. But then nobody was, the consensus isn't looking and seeing a lot of this is garbage man points, and there's not a whole lot of skill development. So how is he going to up his points per game? He scores 15.3 points per game the next season. It's the exact same. The next year, he obviously has that jump in points. He incorporates more of the three-point shot. He gets more pick and roll on-ball possessions. He still has Pascal Siakam as a bit of a buffer for matchup stuff. And there you go. Boom, all-star. The next year, he's now the number 1 option on every defensive situation. His teammates are less talented for assist and scoring opportunities. There's less gravity. He's working on skill development through all of this. Numbers go down. I think it's set up for him to make a jump in the numbers. Not a super impressive one, but I think the most impressive thing will be team performance. I think the most impressive thing will be his efficiency not being truly like at the bottom of the league for guys on that volume. And I think it's going to be a modest uptick. Points per game, I think he's going north of where he was, even with the addition of Brandon Ingram. Assists per game, I think it's going to get north of 6. The Raptors are still going to pass the ball a lot. And rebounding, he's always been so good on putbacks. He's always been so good pressing the glass. He's always been so good on making teams feel that threat of just not having enough size in 2 through 4 to handle his, he just comes in, he's a wrecking machine. That bedrock of skills is so important.
To that point, his offensive rebound actually dropped last year, not by virtue of any change in his abilities. He just had the ball above the break a lot more. He was shooting from further away. He went from 2.6, 2.3, 2.4 in his first 3 years to 1.7 a game. And that's purely roll. That's just where his touches are. And that should jump up, right? So, you could easily be looking at a 21, 8 and 7 year rather than, 19, 8 and 6. By the way, we're talking about just role change, minimal skill change. The conversation around Barnes nationally, I'm expecting to take a huge swing. The gap is never larger in conversation than how players who are underperforming in a primary role versus players who are overperforming in a supportive role.
Yep.
And I suspect Barnes is going to go from one to the other next season. And I mean, look at Derek White. He's the perfect example. In San Antonio, he had all of these skills ready to manifest when he's around a star. There just wasn't any. And he was talked about as, in many ways, an empty calorie player. By many, not by all. He goes to Boston, and now he's one of the most coveted archetypal off-ball guards in the league. It's not that he developed his game. He did. His shooting obviously took steps, a lot changed. But it was more than anything else, role, performance in that role. And man, Barnes could easily be talked about as like, this guy's dominating the league next year with the same numbers.
You said 21, 8 and 7. If he gets there, I'm over the moon. But also we can use another Spurs guard who shared the floor with Derek White as a cautionary tale to some degree, not because of his injuries. DeJounte Murray, a guy who was all defense very early in his career, a guy who really brought it on that end of the floor, and a guy who did see some, I think, impressive skill development, improved at a lot of things. Also, heavy assist guy because he dominated the ball and floated, and I guess the warts of his game started to get the better of his game. He held on to the ball a lot. If he wanted to be impactful, it had to go through him. It didn't go well when he played next to Trey. He didn't get much of a chance when he was in New Orleans, of course. And when he comes back, he'll have a chance to do it. But there's like a better angels of your nature and there's like a worse devils of your nature. He started to play a game that was conducive to all the things he had developed, but none of what he brought into the league. And Scottie is a guy who clearly has developed and clearly has the, I guess, capacity for more development, but he needs to find the proper marriage along with his coaching staff for how much the things that I brought in that I still have to keep representing, and then also what he's developed. Last year, very interesting in the fact that he fell in love with so much of this, very very inefficient offensive process, but in a lost season, still busted his ass nonstop on defense and gave you all of that. Just that half of the floor. Usually guys don't give you that in the empty season.
No.
That is what he is enigmatic. He's an enigmatic player for a lot of these reasons. And because so much of what defined his early step into the league is like, this is one of the quickest processing forwards in the NBA. This is a guy who is defined by his ability to make rapid reads and the right one. And a guy who, not in the vein of LeBron James as an all-time player, but in the vein of a big forward who plays the right way and makes the right decision. He fell and he just started making worse decisions. And it was a little bit more like, I'm just going to see how things go from me. But defensively, busting that ass, helping out his teammates, the rising tide that lifted all boats. How do you feel about his defense going into next year?
So phenomenally. Just before that, though, no one really saw the league change underneath their feet as much as DeJounte Murray, man. Like what the league demanded of a point guard 3 years ago versus now, crazy. Anyway, that's not to the point, obviously.
Well, and he still, he's still a great pocket passer. He still is a talented player. He can still turn it up defensively a little bit time to time. He's developed things. It's just like hanging on to the ball. It's tough scene. It's a tough scene.
Yeah. Defensively, I think there's just no doubt in my mind that Scottie Barnes is ready to eat the world. He doesn't need that much to be able to build a pretty solid defense. Like that's been there statistically. We talked about RPM and whatever and how it feels about him. Defensively, he's beloved, I believe, by those metrics, and rightfully so. The worst devils of his nature, that can't be the expression, but I'm using it. The worst.
The antonym of the better angels of your nature, whatever the antonym is. Yeah.
The worst devils of his nature defensively were quite potent in the first few seasons of his career. He had really high stance on the ball. He stepped way up on guys, got blown by. He was sort of out of position sometimes at space, trusting his rotation. Just gone. Like he has, in many ways, just excised those worst devils. And he is trusting his, you talk about this more than anyone, that responsive defense where he's trusting his length rather than his reaction time on the ball, giving a little bit more of a cushion.
Pressure and getting into people in deny defense, buffer once they catch, manhandling people and then getting off of it.
He had a game against Paolo Banchero where defensively it was like, oh my God, this guy is taking one of the premier young stars. That's how people talk about him, and just eliminating him from the game. Defensively, he's always stepped up to those matchups. Some of his biggest games came against LeBron James, in his earlier years in situations like that. In his couple playoff games, he really, really rose. He's always been a guy to step into that spotlight. But defensively, most of all, he's really, really had a knack for taking those matchups. And I think the one thing that helps him the most, because he does a lot. He can protect the rim. He can deny off the ball. He can guard the ball. He's a terrific stunter, rotator. He does a lot. what helps him more than anything, to my eye, is really aggressive guards, which TBD we'll see, but length. Length gives him that extra half beat in the lane as a stunter where he can rotate. It really allows him, like, cramping that space is a catalyst to what he can offer defensively, all those different skills and abilities and tendencies. And even if Ingram may not be this terrific defender, what he is he is long. And I do think the defense without Barnes may be quite ho-hum, but it is built in small ways to complement Barnes and unleash his defensive abilities.
The Raptors, we've talked about this before, and as you said, with Ingram there in length, shrinking the floor, it is one of the number one ethics that GMs, presidents, whoever want to try and build defenses with this in mind, because being able to shrink the floor with size protects you from a lot of your, like, the things that limit you elsewhere defensively. We've seen teams that maybe they're not super strong at the point of attack. It's like, well, if you have three guys who are massive elsewhere who can step in and kind of absorb guys into their space, and they're so big and so good at presenting themselves as an angle that it seems treacherous to, pick up the ball through them. It also seems treacherous to try and make the angled pass around them. And even if you do make that pass, their length means you have to put arc on it, which means that these great athletes can catch up as the ball travels. Scottie Barnes has the will, has the size, and has the athleticism, and he started to enact like the technique and the strategy of it.
Yeah.
And that, just given his talents and the fact that he reads it really well, I mean, get out of here. He's just that's a truly great defender. I think he could be. I think there should be 3 all defense teams in the NBA. If there was, he'd definitely be, in the talks for it. He should even have a chance at making one of the 2 this upcoming season. Depends on
he really might, this upcoming season.
And especially too, because when we think about this kind of stuff, it's like, offensive role increases, defensive impact falls off a cliff. He maintained it as his offensive role, as his usage went up. Not only that, but his usage and what he's tasked with offensively might even go down a little bit. And I don't know if, like, some players that might lead to them sulking. I hope that wouldn't be the case for Scottie. In the optimist take is that, like, there's more energy, so expend that as well on the glass to clean up possessions, to get extra ones, to provide more deny coverage and all that kind of stuff. The defense is in a great place. I'd be very crestfallen if the floor came out from under his defense. I think it's in a great spot.
You really see the defense if you look at some of the on-off numbers, in that it's not one area or another. In literally every area, the Raptors were better. They fouled less when he was on the court versus on the bench. They rebounded better. They forced more turnovers. They forced more misses. Like, it was every area. They were far better in the half court. They were far better defending in transition. They allowed less transition. Opponents shot from, less impactful area. It was just, he impacted
everything.
Defense. It's incredible. I think if things work offensively, the defense is just going to come along for the ride. There's almost no doubt in my mind that as long as the offense is fine, the defense will be very good. If the offense is not fine, if too many cooks, they all like the middle of the floor, whatever, not enough shooting, you can see defense having some sort of interlinked fall there. But as long as the offense is passable, I just have no doubts about the defense, and that's almost exclusively because of Scottie Barnes.
That's why I like him so much as a player. That's why he is, and honestly, why a lot of this podcast is, it's analysis based, right? And so anytime that happens, it's like competing conceptions of the analysis. And sometimes that clashes with fan base, and sometimes that emboldens fan base. Depends on, if the analyst is popular and liked or whatever the hell. But Scottie, one of the most impressive things about his game is that he just can't lose his impact ever. Like, it's really tough for him to, he's one of those wings who one of those forwards, probably I should say, rather than wing, that you really can see. Forget that he insists on being called a point guard, that even the Raptors open gym production crew says this guy's a point guard. Forget that. The guy is just damn good at basketball, hugely talented, huge, and he cares, and he plays like he cares. A lot of guys with his talents maraud around the NBA without caring as much as he does, and you can tell. And when they lock in for a season or two, then it becomes apparent, like, oh my God, big forwards really do dominate the NBA sometimes. And Scottie, depending on the development, which is what we'll talk about next, domination can look different, but a few things have tiptoed in and out of his game. One, we mentioned it earlier, having a 35-game stretch of 39% from three on 6 attempts per game, that was pretty nuts to start 2023-24. It also coincided with the worst shooting blip of Pascal Siakam's career, and Pascal went the other way. He's been like 40% ever since then. Weird shooting stretch. Just odd things happen. Toronto was in a weird place. You and I have talked about this before. There's the shooting. We'll talk about that. There's pick and roll ball handling, on-ball possessions, guard screeners. And where do you sit on all of this? The three-point shot and the on-ball creation around a team that is more talented. Do you see potential for him to make a leap in terms of his creation efficiency, what he's able to create and how he's able to provide?
Yeah, I think on one hand, they just need more shooting around him. He is not a good enough driver from a standstill to force complex rotations with the ball in his hands. So the passes available are external passes by and large. He does a great job creating those attacking passes, but if you're not going to force complex rotations, they're just not there all that often. Yep. Especially when the team's out of their base package, they're actually game planning. And if the Raptors are any good, if they're 500, they will actually see game plans from defenses. That's not a thing they dealt with last year. And so, well, if that's the only pass available, those, the pass to the opposite above the break shooter, if that guy makes the shot, it looks a whole lot better. Ochai did a better job of drifting above the break. He didn't really come all the way. He just came to the elbow extended, wing extended. Grady hit those pretty well. Emmanuel hit them in the games he played, which was almost none. Brandon's a terrific catch and shoot shooter. I'm hoping that they have health, they have rotation, and in that rotation are players who can make 3-point shots when Scottie Barnes passes them the ball, and they're standing still above the break. Without that, you almost can't build a good half-court offense in today's NBA. Yep. And so a lot of that is just, do they have the infrastructure?
Do you believe in the infrastructure? I mean, this podcast will cover Quickly and Grady, to be certain, in their own preview podcasts before the season starts. But Quickly has proven the efficacy of it.
Yeah.
Grady has proven the willingness, and both those guys haven't proven the other thing. Quickly is not quick enough to the ball, to the spot, rotating to where he needs to be as a shooter to threaten and support his drivers. If he adds that to his game, of course, and the willingness to be to have more screening in his game, he could be a guy who is the linchpin of like 9 different actions that the Raptors love running, and could just unloading from 3, pump, go down, spray the ball, catch, shoot. He could be looking at more shots than he even wants, potentially. And Grady is a guy who's like, I'll get in every action, I'll run around, I'll sprint everything, loses his legs after 13 minutes of the game, and is like, man, I'm dead. Both those guys have something, Quickly has far less to prove. Grady is looking at, okay, it becomes extension time soon for him. He has a lot to prove. These guys, big years from the both of them, could support Scottie in such a fantastic way. Not only that, but also for their own careers too. And Ingram, we already talked about it. There's potential there. Scottie, we've seen it before. when the structure is there, can definitely give you pick and roll possessions, lead ball handle possessions. It just can't be nonstop. It can't be everything because it's not impervious to defensive changes. His 3-point shot, where are you? He's 30% on the dot for his whole career, by the way. He had that hot streak. He shot 27% last year. He shot 28% as a rookie. Then it was 30. Then it was 34. Now it's 27. So a lot of erratic stuff going on. Do you believe in it?
I believe in it almost identically to how I believe in RJ's jumper. I think they have similar paths to success, which RJ has walked about as well as I expect him to. RJ is a totally passable standstill shooter. You put any motion in his body, and he just has no kinetic ability to keep it straight on the way to the rim. Like his pull-up shooting could be among high-frequency players in the league, one of the worst for a passable three-point shooter in the league.
RJ's definitely.
It's crazy how terrible it is pull-up. But it's not that important because he is a passable standstill shooter. He hits about league average, and I think that's enough for his role. It would be great if he shot 40%, right? It would be great if you wish cast all these things, but he's done enough with his shooting. And I believe in Scottie Barnes' jumper to the same extent. I think
the pull-up. I believe in the pull-up a lot more than RJ's pull-up.
Oh, certainly. I just said RJ is one of the worst in the league, if not the worst, among this category of players. I don't think Scottie's there as a pull-up shooter. And you can see that in the mid-range. I mean, Scottie makes his mid-rangers mid-40s, low 40s. RJ's like mid-30s. There's a huge gap in their efficacy on pull-up middies. But I think it's a path to success. I don't think Scottie's path to shooting is on the pull-up. I think it is just being a solid standstill shooter. It's not drifting 3 feet behind the line and catching there and shoot it. That's crazy. Like just shoot 24 feet, not 26. Like I think there's room for his mentality to change. I think there's room for his shot diet to change. And I think it'll just balance out because I trust his touch. I trust his form. And I think the jumper probably will balance out at about 34, 35, 36% from deep if it just tilts a lot more to these more repeatable catch and shoot attempts.
He's got simple mechanics. It's not too much going on there. That's good. He's been, since he got into the league, a very strong hook shot player. He's okay on push shots. He's all right on free throws. He clearly
78%, 77%, 2 years, and like that's pretty good.
As a forward, actually, that's probably 80th percentile and above.
Yeah,
strong. There's nothing there that says he should be locked away from developing as a 3-point shooter. In fact, anybody who looked at the data and you weren't allowed to give someone the 3-point percentage, which admittedly is the most important part, but they would say, yeah, this guy can definitely shoot threes. Yeah. And that, like, it should be in his game to improve. 27%. I don't know what happened last year. There's some stuff about the hand. He sustained a pretty terrible dip. What's that? A slump is what it's called. And
pull-ups, man.
And he was trying a lot of stuff and early pull-ups too. There were a lot of warts in his game last year that need to be sanded off and moving forward. You got lice. We need to shave your head and get you back out on the monkey bars. You know what I mean? There's a lot of room for optimism. The shooting, I think he could be a pretty decent shooting forward someday. Yeah. But if it didn't happen, I also wouldn't be surprised because he's 900 attempts into his career and shooting 30% from 3. That's bad. It's not good enough. But there's other markers.
I think there's happening. I would be surprised if it didn't settle out at 34 or 35%. That would shock me. I would be surprised if it did settle out at 38, 39%. There's a big gap there. But going from 30 to 34 is not that crazy.
Everyone has a 34% season in them almost. You know what I mean?
I'm talking career. I think he can... 5 more seasons of high volume at 35, that might average out to 34 or something like that for his career. I think
Bob's your uncle. Becky's your aunt. Easy peasy. There's room to believe in it, and I do think now this happened. I got clipped saying or presenting the reasoning of why I think Scottie could be the best player from his draft class going forward. I do
Yes.
see a path there. I do see a path. Trey and I were talking about it. And so obviously I got dunked on a bunch. And I understand because Scottie, there's no reason to say he would be the best. This is not a take I will go to the woodshed for. I'm not very invested in it. I also learned that there's no penalty to being wrong. And I can see a path where Scottie 10 years from now is a guy who's just like one of those big wings, big forwards who's just unbelievable and present on really good teams and plays up in the playoffs. And I love that. But Mobley, Franz, Şengün, Trey, Cade, Cade shouldn't be named last there, but these guys are great.
We were
However,
talking about people who are beloved because they're overperforming in a supportive role. If Scottie Barnes got to play alongside Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, he would be a poster child of love from the
that's the big
intelligentsia.
thing.
There's a big thing here.
I think Franz probably on there's the advanced numbers say it's Mobley, and it's not
By the
particularly
way, you were
close.
insane.
Yeah.
That was an insane take. I'm not trying to agree with you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. Mobley by the numbers is the guy, right? It's forecasting basketball. Who the hell knows how it's going to go? Mobley by the numbers is the guy. By the counting stats, you go back to Cade. The mix of the guys who mix the two a lot of times go and they look at Franz and they say, that's the guy. But there's a big Italian boy standing in the way of Franz from being getting all of the ball and getting those reps in. The most interesting thing
Desmond
is
Bane
that yeah, Desmond. The most interesting thing for sure is that Cade, I think, will have trouble paring down in his career. And also, do I want this guy to be averaging 26 and 10 on my team? You know, some of the basketball theory there. And I look at Mobley and I'm like, everything is so good. Everything is so prim and proper and just streamlined for efficiency. Get a little bit dirty. I was listening to Blake's podcast and he made a joke with Dan Schulman where he was saying, if you're 27 for 27 on stolen bases, are you not stealing enough bases? You didn't get caught once? Are you not doing enough, man? Mobley, I get the feeling. Steal some more bases. Get a little bit wild with it. But also the things that make him so excellent and put him in that strong role, like Mitchell and Garland, also limit that ability to freestyle. Scottie has had no defined role. He's just been freaking out in Toronto doing stuff. And I think this year, a more defined role should help make things concrete, solidify, calcify, whatever the term is. I'm sure you know 100 of them.
It's funny we're talking about finally some stability the year they fire Masai Ujiri. But truly, it's been, Toronto has spent a long time being a joke, being an absolute disaster of a franchise. And then there was such a long period of sustained excellence due to one Kyle Lowry that we kind of all forgot about the history of it. You look from the 2010s, right? Toronto was near the top for everything, wins, playoff wins. They swept the table for a decade. It's them and the Spurs and the Clippers, and that was gone. And we didn't know it was gone. It was like, there's Fred and Pascal and OG. There's talent, but you look back to the Kyle days, and it's pretty far in the rear view, and you know that because you look at Scottie Barnes' role, and you see so little consistency. You see so little in the plan. It's been back to the days of the basketball game tonight. Crazy. Go out there and play. And you hope that's done. That would be nice if that's done. Maybe Kyle Lowry should come back. You think about that?
Everybody is a Kyle Lowry merchant. That much is clear to me. And And that's how Masai, for all of he's great. You can't take anything away from him. Excellent. His tenure, sterling. His legacy, nothing against it. Even though he wanted to get rid of Kyle a couple times, and Kyle was clearly the reason why everything worked for the entire tenure of Masai's work with the Raptors. Kyle being there it made everything go. He tried to trade him for Iman Shumpert and J.R. Smith. Could you imagine? Any final thoughts on Scottie before we get out of here?
There's a world in which he does take skill development. Mm-hmm. I think the handle tightens, the jumper, he goes through another hot stretch. There's a world where we're not talking about 21, 7, and 6. We're not talking about a supporter to Brendan Ingram's offensive leader. We're talking about a much bigger jump, I think. Because we have only discussed maintenance. And we haven't discussed the possibility of a true bursting out of his preconceived abilities to this point.
That potential was what made me say, like, yeah, why not number one going forward?
Yeah.
That it was that, and of course, who cares? He has to show us a little bit first, I think. Does that seem fair? You and I can revisit this, but for now, I think that's what makes it so interesting is it is encased in this expectations and role. And even if you're just the NBA loves when a guy is the same guy, but just gets to do easier stuff or gets paid less money. Nothing is more compelling, except when it's Russell Westbrook, who was great on a minimum contract. And then it's like, this guy is tanking everything. But
I wrote a whole piece. So there is a play. I'm going to get a little personal for this one. There was a play last year in preseason. I'm talking about preseason now. You probably know the play already, where he caught above the break, drove, little curly drive, and then he just one leg turned his drive into the guy's body. That Giannis, like, get off me step, huge long strides, dunked through traffic after just like totally unloading the defense just through body strength and sort of torque in the turn to the rim. It was the one moment when everyone who says he is Giannis with a jumper had something going for him. That one play in preseason gave us something to dream about. Give us more of that, baby.
I detest the Giannis with a jumper. I detest it.
Because he's neither. He doesn't have a jumper. And he's not Giannis.
Well, also, as if the Giannis part is achievable. Like,
just be one of the 10 greatest players in the modern era of basketball, obviously. Be the best and the strongest and the fastest and the longest. Grow, obviously.
Yeah.
Be much stronger.
The medieval stretch machine.
Yeah.
Crab Rangoon, things of that nature. And just, get back out on the court. You'll be like the guy from the Willy Wonka that gets to stretched out. And anyway.
Shave your head. Grow 3 inches.
We
get
need
back
more...
out on the monkey bars.
Exactly. Louis, I appreciate it very much for stepping in and discussing Scottie with me. If I had to ask you, what other player do you want to preview with me? And don't do like the 10th man, like this 7, like one of the main 7. Who would you want to talk about?
Let me answer that question with a question. Would that be because Trey and Ets are on break?
No. You
took that quite seriously. Okay, another player. I think that you and I have the most interesting conversations when we disagree. And I think Emmanuel's the most likely player to offer that for us. I would love if we could talk about Emmanuel.
Yeah. Trey likes to offer a little bit of back and forth too.
Yeah, I mean, why do I never get to see Trey?
You can see him whenever you want.
Get 3 of us together in here. Shave our heads. Get us out on the monkey bars.
Then we have a stew going, baby. Hell yeah. Okay. You and we'll talk quickly. But the last time we talked quickly, we agreed too much, But
Yeah,
maybe take a stance. Get brave.
I'll come and swing it.
Okay. Tell me he's going to be an all-star or something so I can go and make faces.
No, I'm going to do the Price is Right. I'm going to come in under you.
Ooh, that would make me argue for quickly. I'd like to see it. He's no good. He can't do anything. What can he even shoot?
I'm going to yell so loud, though.
It's guys will really get on here and tell you Steph Curry can't shoot the basketball or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in with Louis and I. We enjoyed this conversation. At least I did. We would enjoy if you liked, comment, and subscribed. And go to raptorsrepublic.com because there's a lot of great written work there as well. So keep up with us on both sides. We have a lot of work coming. I'll be at training camp, and we'll be doing work from there. So hopefully some good stuff. Stay tuned with us. Okay. Thank you, everybody, from myself and Louis, whether you got into this in the morning or at night. Have a blessed day and goodbye.